I had previously written a comedy on pandemic dating, and then, on Thursday, July 2nd, I was listening to CBC Radio, and I was surprised to hear the debaters come on at 7:30 p.m. Now, this is not the usual time for debaters. CBC usually does not air debaters at 7:30 p.m. on a Thursday, so they must have just changed the programming schedules. Anyways, the debaters is a fun program, and they were having a comic debate about dating. So that was nice. It was interesting to hear what other comedians have to say about socially distanced dating during the coronavirus pandemic. And then, coincidentally, the next day, Friday, July 3rd, our chief public health officer took a media question. Somebody asked her, how could single people have sex during the summer? And you see, as a public health officer, a public health officer cannot joke about things. So everything she says needs to be based on facts and science. It has to be factual information. And anything that she says would become potentially a public health directive or an order, and we act on a public health officer's best advice. So since our public health officer cannot joke about anything, I guess I can tell the jokes instead. So our public health officer began by conceding that she is not a dating expert. Now, though, she then proceeded to give her response about pandemic dating. She suggested people to start online and choose options that will keep both parties safe. But she didn't say if online dating is safe in terms of fraud and online bullying. For sure, it's safe from COVID-19. I haven't heard of anyone contracting COVID-19 over the internet. As far as I understand, COVID-19 is not a computer virus. So, it's COVID-19 safe, but might not be safe in terms of other things like online bullying and fraud and other bad stuff that happened online. She even suggested having a picnic as possibly a safe first date. I don't remember her saying if you need to keep 2 meters away from your date at the picnic table, or if you choose a picnic blanket, you have to choose a picnic blanket that's large enough so you can both sit on it and keep 6 feet apart. I don't think she said something like that, but that's an idea. Better yet, maybe you should each bring your own picnic blanket and pack your own sandwich and pack your own drinks so you don't share anything and you sit on your own blanket. Oh, and don't forget the hand sanitizer. And probably you should both arrive wearing a mask until you are ready to eat, and take off your mask only to eat. And even when you're talking to each other, you have your mask on. Or you don't really have to face each other to talk, right? But you probably want to check each other out and look at each other. In case you want to hug or kiss, I suppose maybe you can kiss each other with your mask on. Not sure if that's safe or not. She didn't say that. I'm the one who said that. Public health officer did warn that you are entering a serious social contract when you're dating somebody. That was her words. She said it's a serious social contract. Of course, because you're bringing somebody into your bubble. And remember, not only can you infect each other, you can infect each other's families and also other people within each other's bubble. So if you are sick, the problem is not you get sick. The problem is that you will make other people sick. So consider if anyone in your family might be vulnerable if exposed to COVID-19. Maybe you need to self-isolate from your family for 14 days after you date a stranger. Now, and then our chief public health officer went on to advise singular dating or small numbers. That implies normally pre-COVID, maybe we'll be dating large numbers of people or having group orgies as if polygamy is the norm. I mean, she suggested singular dating or small numbers. On the other hand, I think most people want more than singular dating. I mean, singular dating is like you marry the first person you meet. No trial and error, no second thoughts, no mistakes. You meet the love of your life in one shot, and the rest is history. How about try an arranged marriage? Just marry the one that's handpicked for you. But what if you want to explore? What if you want to try out multiple dates? It's just like you interview for multiple jobs and employers interview multiple candidates. Or it's kind of like trying out for a sports team, right? The team tries out multiple players. You might try out for multiple teams. Why should you settle for one? Our public health officer did not specify what is small number dating. How about date one person today, another person tomorrow, a different person the day after tomorrow, and then a fourth person on day 4, and a fifth date on day 5. That's 5 people in 5 days. Does that count as dating in small numbers? Or do you have to quarantine for 14 days after each date? Is it a crime to date the second person without telling him or her that you just dated somebody else within the last 14 days? Most people don't even want to know how many dates they've had or how many people they went to bed with. I mean, we don't reveal stuff like that, right? Do you have to reveal that you met somebody, stranger, within the last 14 days? I don't know. How about this? What if you scheduled a lunch date, followed by a coffee date, and then a dinner date, and then a movie date, and then a one-night stand, all in one day? That's 5 dates in one day. Is that okay? I mean, we were asking 5 dates in 5 days, and now we go from 5 dates in 5 days to 5 dates in one day. What's better? What's the safer way to go? That's nothing compared to speed dating. I mean, we said 5 dates in 5 days, and then we said 5 dates in one day. But in speed dating, you're probably dating 5 people within 2 hours. Right? 20 minutes per candidate, and then maybe a chance for a second date. You come up with a list of interview questions, you got only 20 minutes. Right? You only have a few minutes to go through your questions, and you still have to have time to answer your dates questions. So you come in with your list, and you basically fire away and say, how old are you? How many times have you been married before? How many boyfriends? How many girlfriends? How many children do you have? How old are your children? Do you prefer to marry a man or a woman? Are you biologically a man or biologically a woman? And do you prefer to be a man or do you prefer to be a woman? How much money did you make before the pandemic? And how much money do you make now? What do you do for a living? How many homes do you own? And meanwhile, as you're asking the questions, you're just making check green marks or red X's on your scorecard. At the same time, you're trying to answer some of your dates questions, and also you're also trying to assess some questions without asking. I mean, you have in your list, but you're not going to ask things like how tall are you, or how much they weigh, or what's their skin color. I mean, you can make that visual assessment yourself for a best estimate. You're not going to ask what someone's breast size is, if they're a woman. Penis size, sorry, hate to admit it, I don't think you can figure this one out just by looking when somebody has their trousers on. So yeah, you probably, in addition to answering all the questions, you're probably also giving an attractiveness rating a score out of 10. And by the end of those 2 hours, you'll be left with a bunch of scorecards and your interview notes. And you're probably thinking who to bring home to meet mom and dad and who to bring home to sleep with. And they don't have to be the same person. The one you saw mom and dad doesn't have to be the same person as the one you sleep with. Just keep in mind, our chief public health officer said, you're making a serious social contract to bring somebody into your COVID-19 bubble. But I think we all missed the point. If you go back to the beginning, the media question was not about dating. The reporters specifically asked about having sex. How do you have sex during a pandemic? Oops. I think we missed the point. And that's what politicians do. Well, sorry to say, our public health officer actually is not a politician, but she works with a lot of politicians. And you know how politicians are like. They don't necessarily answer the question directly. They take you on a long-winded tour around of the answer, and then you forget what the original question was. And then you realize, oh, the original question hasn't even been answered. But they give a long-winded answer, so you don't remember the question. So I'm reminding you here, the question was about how are single people going to have sex this summer. And since we didn't get a direct answer from our public health officer, I'll have to answer it for you. How to have sex with a stranger during the COVID-19 pandemic. Actually, that's easy. If the question really was just about having sex, then it's easy. If the question had been how to kiss a stranger on the lips during the COVID-19 pandemic, now that's a much harder question to answer, because kissing would definitely introduce somebody into your social bubble, unless you're kissing with a mask on, which may or may not help. So if you're kissing, then, in the words of a public health officer, yeah, I think you're making a serious social contract. But if the question really was just about having sex, then I suppose it's possible to protect each other from the coronavirus. Just don't kiss. No foreplay. Sex only. I suppose you both have to take a shower first. You have to clean your bodies. You will put on a mask, and better yet, put on a fit-tested N95 respirator. And also choose a sex position that keeps your heads as far away from each other as possible, and then have sex. Done. You did it. Having sex with a stranger during COVID-19 while keeping each other safe. And if you want to make sex even safer, then consider using a plexiglass barrier. You know, ever since this pandemic started, plexiglass is now pretty standard now. You see it in stores, banks, customer service counters, you name it. So, use it for sex too. One of you would put your special organ through the hole in the plexiglass, and the other partner will press up against the hole in the plexiglass. So, the two of you will only meet with your sexual organs through the hole in the plexiglass. Instead of putting money through the hole, you shove your sex organs through the hole and possibly pass semen through the hole too. I suppose you could also stick cash through the hole if you're paying for sex. And if the plexiglass isn't sexy enough, I think somebody need to invent, actually it's not, you don't need to invent, it's already invented. Maybe a transparent plastic tarp type of thing. So this way, you can actually feel each other's body through the plastic wrap. And there is a hole in the tarp, so you will use the small hole in the tarp for passing your or sharing your sexual fluids, and then you can feel each other through the tarp. Just keep in mind, okay, really important, keep in mind, COVID-19 is not the only thing that can be transmitted during sex. There are a bunch of other infections that can be sexually transmitted. So make sure you remember to practice safe sex. Have fun and stay healthy.